Hello and welcome to another episode of Power on Podcast Portable. Hello everyone, I am Sushi B, and of course with me is the venerable, the powerful, the wonderful, and every other full you can think of, Mr. Murugan 553 Taylor. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Full of ... whatever.
Oh,
and
you guys fill in the blanks. I'm doing all
we're
right.
a team here, right? So we're both full of ... So, but yeah, so you're doing pretty good?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Busy, but that's okay because today we have a fantastic episode put for everyone that's listening today, and I will introduce it right away so we can just get started. And we are going to look at Valkyria Chronicles for the PlayStation 3. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to guess we both have sort of different ways of coming into this game, but I've probably mentioned before on the show, or at least to you at the very least. I'll just very, very briefly talk about it, but I did buy my first PS3 specifically for this game. I remember seeing it and thinking, yeah, that's a system seller for myself, and I was really excited to get it, and that was back in 2008, and I paid an obnoxious sum for a PlayStation 3, which I will not disclose at this point. You do happen to know how much, but I will not be sharing that with anyone else. But anyways, I did buy the PS3 for this game, and I bought the machine and I got it and everything. I had to import it overseas, so that's partly why it was so expensive. And I remember getting this game and playing it on there, and I really enjoyed it, but I got stuck kind of early in the game. Of course, life happens, and so I ended up putting it down for a while, and I never finished it. I had it, and other games came in, and I just kind of forgot about it. Not necessarily forgot about it, but I didn't play it. And now here we are. I finally got a chance to fully play through the game, and we'll be discussing our thoughts on it. How about yourself?
That's the thing. I honestly don't remember why I picked this game up.
Okay.
I really don't know. I don't know if somebody had mentioned it, and somebody was like recommending it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, you try it, or if I just saw it in the store and I had a lapse in judgment, and I was like, oh, I see 2 and 3 here too. Let's just get them all, kind of thing, which probably could have happened. Because I can't say that me looking at the
cover.
Well, not even just looking at the cover, but just kind of looking at the game. I wouldn't say I would be naturally like, oh yeah, I want to get this, because I knew nothing about it.
Right.
So I'm really drawing a blank as to why. Maybe Greg had mentioned something that kind of seems to be something, but yeah, like I'm not quite sure. I think there might have been multiple people whispering in my head, not just the voices in my head, but people kind of saying, "Oh yeah, you should check it out." And eventually I did, but yeah. And when I did get it, I did actually play through it. So for this one, we're coming through at two different
tunnels,
perspectives, right? Because I mean, for you, half the game at least was very new to you, and for me, yeah. I already kind of gone through it, so it's like, oh, okay, do.
But that's okay.
So, yes,
yeah, it's funny. This game, I remember when as I said, I did see it before it was released, and I was really excited for it. I was really hopeful, like for something fresh from Sega, and I've always enjoyed the sort of strategy or tactical RPGs. And when I remember seeing some videos, just very briefly, I was like, oh, that looks very different. It looks interesting. And this game was kind of I don't know if you can say that, but it was a best kept secret on the PS3 sort of thing. Like it came out and it sold extremely poorly, which disappointed me to no end. Like, as I remember, I was like, I bought it like day one. I don't usually do that anymore, kind of thing. I had to, again, I had to import the machine and the game. So, I went to some trouble to get it. It wasn't just I walked down the store and picked it up off the shelf kind of thing. So I was a little sad that it didn't do well when it first came out. And and so forth. But it seemed like it quickly snowballed. Though I remember that Sega had mentioned they had sold out the copies that they had put out, and I think they had brought out another batch, and they seemed to be doing fairly well. And I think it did okay over time. I don't know if it made a lot of money, but maybe recouped enough that they were able to continue the franchise, even though it did move to the PSP and stuff. But it seems to have a fairly strong following now, and I don't know, we'll get into, I guess, at least why we chose this game and if we liked it or not.
Most definitely.
All right. Well, we're both kind of interested in history, so that was another thing that was kind of cool about this game, even though it's not obviously following a traditional history of any kind. But they sort of set up their own sort of world that follows kind of what happened in the First and Second World War, which was interesting.
Right. They kind of we did sort of mention this to each other off air here, but I think it needs to be said is that while the game kind of presents itself as early World War II-ish, we both had a vibe of World War One, and whether that just be because of I don't know, maybe just because of how it looks, the aesthetics of it, or just I don't know. There's something about it that just feels more like World War One than World War Two, even though they're supposed to kind of give you a World War Two vibe.
Right.
So,
which is fine, right? It's not really that big a deal, but I know for me myself playing it, I thought, yeah, this kind of feels more like World War One. Just the setup of it and just the, as you said, it's a little hard to exactly say what it is about the game, but. There's no planes in this. In World War One, they were just starting to sort of experiment with battle planes and things. There's something about it, and obviously in this game they allude to the fact that there was a war prior to this. I forget the exact time frame. Maybe you can help me out here, but 10 years, 20. Something like that? 20 years, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's in between that. I think it was may have been 15 or something.
Okay.
Because the main character's father was in that. And
right.
So,
big war hero.
Right. And, yeah, and I think you said it best, the principality, of where everything takes place is, Belgium.
Yeah, pretty much. Earlier.
It's Belgium.
When we talked, I was like, this is pretty much just Belgium. It's pretty much the way it's sort of set up and whatnot. But and I guess a part of me is kind of like the way that they fight back in this feels a bit more like Belgium in World War One as well.
Well, right.
It wasn't just a complete sweep out but I could see why somebody's like, yeah, it feels like World War II as well. It certainly does. But maybe, I don't know, maybe you and I have perhaps we have more interest in World War One, so maybe we know a little more. I wouldn't say we know more about the history, but we have a more interest in it, I guess. So,
we're just hoping that it's more of a nod towards World War One.
Yeah, because I personally I have a lot more interest in studying World War One and the relationships that happened during that time. Don't get me wrong, World War II is extremely interesting too, but it's been done a lot, and World War One's often kind of shuffled off a little bit to the side, and so we certainly get a lot of games with World War II, but
right,
so forth.
So
yeah, World War One, interesting. So
check it out
if you've got time. So, what did you think of beyond that? Like, sort of why the conflict is being taken place and things like that. And I don't know. I was wondering if you could perhaps elaborate a bit more on what's going down, kind of thing.
Well, you got kind of two major sides going on, and that's one is I think it's the Atlantic Federation, and the other is the Imperial Alliance, like the East European Imperial Alliance, which is the dickheads off to the east, and they're going at it.
They want everything.
Well, they want the Ragnite.
The Ragnite, particularly.
And Ragnite is kind of it's not just, I don't want to say it's just oil, but it's kind of an all-encompassing thing. They use it for that healing kind of grenade.
Right.
Right. So it has a bunch of, it's multi-purposed, it can be used for multiple purposes and stuff. And
Metallurgy and
right, and so they're being greedy. The Imperial Alliance. Well, I don't even know if does it really mention that. Like if they're being
no,
greedy, they want more, or if
they just want it
if
all because they think it
they
would give
just
them
want it,
an
right,
advantage, right?
right. Well, I
Military
mean, we have it
advantage.
all, but yeah. So they just kind of like, all right, we're just gonna take everything and screw you guys. And so they attack Gallia, which is the principality that's neutral, just
Right.
kind of sitting there, just mind their own business. But they have a, if I recall, they have a lot of Ragnite.
Don't they have
They,
the
I think
most
so.
like natural deposits or something?
Yeah, they kind of they're greedy Pete about it, and they just kind of like, oh, it's ours. Not really, but
Not really.
they just they have it. It's just there,
It's
and they
just
just
there. It happens to be there.
right. And so the East European Imperial Alliance is just gonna be like, yeah, we want that. And so they just start. I don't want to say blitzkrieging, but they come in and attempt to take that ore for
Right.
themselves.
Get your hands off me, you damn dirty imp.
Right. So then it's up to the Galleon. How's it say? How do they say
I don't
it?
know, galleons?
Galleons,
Or you can
alright.
say Galilean army? Yeah.
Galleon. Yeah, Galleon.
Well, it's not even really the army, it's the militia,
It's a
right?
militia, and that's what kind of it's a very small fighting force that's taking on
And not even
the
necessarily
brunt.
trained force or anything.
Right.
Well trained.
Which we'll have issues with.
Well,
Me personally.
I mean, it's not like it's just the Imperials here. It's sort of the sorry, I've lost the Atlantic Federation. They're not exactly doing their part, essentially, right, to protect Gallia.
Right.
They're just kind of like, well, we're
You're getting your ass beat, but we don't want to get into this.
right, Belgium. It's kind of like. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like poor Belgium, where it's kind of like, we're backing you, but give us a little more Ragnite, and we'll back you a little more, kind of thing.
Mm.
And I think they don't really allude to like what the sort of coalition is between the Atlantic Federation and them that much. There's an instance in the game where you're kind of like, wait, what the hell? This seems like to be all sort of something's going on here. Somebody who seems to be in charge is actually not really in charge and not really doing what they're supposed to be doing and whatnot. But it's yeah, like this sort of backstabbing that's going on, and maybe that's sort of what feels a bit more like World War II. World War One has that going on, but World War II, you got Hitler's like, we're going to be buddies with Stalin, but not really. We're going to get back at him right away and stuff. And obviously that's part of the Nazis' undoing is enraging the sleeping giant in the Eastern Front while they're already trying to deal with Britain, and they're bombing the hell out of them. But this is another story, obviously. But it's maybe that's sort of where a little bit more like, it's a little more like World War II, I guess, and whatnot. But I love it. I love the concept that's put here. Yeah, some people like the joke, it was fake country and Europa and all this. But yeah, I like that they tried something. They weren't just like, we're for sure making it's just like World War II. We're going to take real places, and they allude to that, but it's still its own world, which I found was not necessarily totally refreshing, but different.
Yeah, I don't mind that so much when you base it like a kind of a new world on like our world stuff in that regard, like where it's very similar. That doesn't bother me so much because there's a lot of interesting like historical fiction stories and stuff, and you're like, okay, those are kind of nifty. And I think the what ifs and this I understand is not what if is as much as let's just kind of tweak some things and go about it this way.
Right, just inspiration more than anything.
Right. So yeah, I don't have an issue with it for this game particularly, but yeah,
You don't have any
serves
major
its purpose.
historians come in and be like, that's wrong. You're free to do whatever you want after you take the general concept. So
Right.
don't even start about that whole Assassin's Creed thing where people are like, it's not real. I'm like, it's a game. Like,
Right.
but anyways, but at least kind of freed them from that tie, right? They're like, okay, we're just kind of basing it on this sort of idea of a World War II. I don't know how you want to consider it as the map of World War II at the time or whatever, and go from there, shoot from there. We've got all our characters and go.
Right.
Right. So I did mention earlier that this is a tactical or strategy RPG, but very different than a lot of the games that we generally see come out for an RPG type game of this genre, I guess, from the RPG extension. In this game, instead of just being on a grid that a lot of games tend to follow, this has a much more open world that allows you to more or less move anywhere you want. And you have a sort of, what is the action gauge or whatever it is?
Like a
AP
movement gauge.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, the AP, yeah.
All right, and you can move as far as you want until that runs out, or as short as you like. You can finish it early as well. And I liked it. I thought it was really interesting. Like I could see that working really well in a lot of other games that are using perhaps swords. And at first I was kind of like, well, I don't know if this is going to work too good because you got guns. And I don't know. I wasn't sure how funky it would feel, but it feels okay. It can feel a little unbalanced at times. Sometimes the enemies seem like they're a little overpowered when they're moving or waiting and whatnot. But generally it works not too bad.
Oh, well, I was going to say, yeah, you kind of, it is a little weird in that context because, using guns, why aren't they just kind of constantly firing and stuff? And I mean, if they were constantly firing,
you'd be dead. For
right. There'd be a lot of dead characters, and you would die quite often.
Dead galleons.
So, right. And I guess for the context of a game, they probably had this in mind. So they're like, well, some things are going to have to be tweaked a little bit so you wouldn't be just under a barrage of machine gun fire the whole damn time or something kind of thing. Because, usually when you shoot somebody in the head, they're going to die after one shot. And that, that doesn't happen. So you got to take it as a game.
Right.
So that doesn't bother me so much. It is a little wonky sometimes where you're, especially with like your characters being kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Because usually if they're sitting there waiting and it's not their turn and the enemy unit is moving, your characters, if they're in the range of fire, will start shooting at them. But sometimes they like to,
shoot behind them.
Well, that or take their damn time to do it, and you're just like, or people, or you get in real close and just throw a grenade at them as if it's stuff that wouldn't, of course, happen quite like that in the game kind of thing, in real life kind of thing. And you can do it in the game and stuff, and it doesn't bother me, but it's stuff that you're just kind of like, okay.
It's a game.
Yeah, but I do like how this is. It's not grid based, and the movement allows you to be able to hide in the grass, or if you want, you can run up and climb up some of the ladders and stuff to top of buildings and
for sniping
and stuff. Right.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I also, one thing I found, it's a little wonky though too. Like that AP gauge, even like a sliver can make a difference at times. Like if you're trying to turn a certain way, if you're in the tank or whatever, it can make a huge difference at times. And there were times where there were some invisible walls, like around little barricades and stuff, and you're like, oh, come on. Or you're trying to get over the sandbags, and that takes like that smidge that you needed to hide behind it or whatever, and you're like, oh, come on, and you got to waste another turn or whatever. So there were a little bit of stuff there that I was like, oh, I wish they could have been able to tighten that up a little bit.
Well, but for first game, kind of, I guess there are some little bit of hurdles that we probably wouldn't have thought of that maybe they didn't just think of, and they're like, we can get away with this.
No, or deadlines too, right? And maybe you can't tweak everything.
Sega, after all. Oh, Sega burn.
No, not everything's bad from Sega, so.
I know, I'm teasing.
Yes, but generally, I like the map setup like before. You can kind of see generally where they're going to attack. They have these great maps that look like the old World War I and II maps. So like the arrows of in there, they're going to be concentrated in this direction and stuff. I like that. I thought that looked cool.
Yeah, it was really cool to see that sort of thing.
Don't see it often. in games, that's for sure.
Mm.
But what about like just the presentation? I know we're kind of actually going a little bit all over right now, but what about like the presentation of the game? It was a huge deal when it came out because the cell shaded stuff was somewhat prevalent in the PS2 era and was becoming popular, but it seemed like it was sort of dying down a little bit. Like people are kind of like weaning away from it, and then this game kind of come out and people were like, wow, it looks almost like you're watching an anime but still playing the game, and it's a little dated now. I mean, it's definitely got a little bit of roughness to it, but it still looks pretty solid. But just in general, like, what did you think about the presentation of everything?
I really liked it. I thought because it's not only just the art aesthetic of it, because it's got that kind of pastel soft coloring that looks like a painting that you're playing through, but it also they present it as almost like a historian look at it through a history book.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is the shit that happened on this day.
Right.
So you go through that. So I think it helps set a good mood for it. The thing that kind of gets to me a little bit though is that I don't mind when a game isn't dark just for the sake of being dark, or gory for just the sake of being gory and stuff. I don't mind when you kind of take out some of the gore and war to make a point about something.
Right.
But it's a little too, what's the word I want to use? Even with some of the bad stuff that goes on, it doesn't feel like it hits as hard because of...
Is it too fantastical for you?
Not fantastical, but it just, I don't know if it's the presentation or if it's just how the characters act.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of it, and just kind of some of the situations. You feel bad for certain things that happen, but then you're kind of, it doesn't. It doesn't need to be like super realism to make the point, but in the same hand, when you got some goofy shit going on, like finding winged pigs,
which doesn't last long, actually.
No,
they kind of cut that out, to be honest. But
exactly, and they have stupid little things like that sometimes, where you're just like, but then like later on in the game, they kind of, they get rid of a lot of that sort of thing.
It dissipates pretty fast.
Right. I mean, they bring up things about racism.
Kind of harsh too with that. Actually, it's not. Well, that's probably another nod to the World War II aspect with
right, the
anti-Semitic issue. It doesn't go to that extent in this game, but it's a little more generic, I guess. But still, it's a pretty critical issue in the game with the Darksons, who are these dark-haired just peoples, and we learn more about what happens with that in later in the game. But
right, so they do touch on those, but I think it's also just how I would say it's how the characters are written that it sometimes it doesn't hit as well as it could have if they would have been a little bit more mature with their writing for the characters, I think, if that makes any sense.
Well, I mean, they were going for a bit of a lighter tone, and I guess, at least to their credit on that, they kept it that way. They certainly could have gone a lot darker with some of the issues that are presented, but I understand what you mean. Like, the Darkson thing is a pretty serious issue, and it's not like it's just rolled over, and it's brought up multiple times, but it's not given that sort of, I don't want to say edge, but it's not given that treatment where you should be like, kind of respect this issue. It's just sort of like, it's an issue, we're going to get past it pretty easily, kind of thing, almost. Like,
through the power of friendship.
Right, and that's fine. And if you want to talk about like a game like Grandia is like that too, where it's very, very much just sort of let's have a good time, and that's a kind of tough thing to juggle when you're talking about war. So, I don't think they did a really bad job with it, but I can see what you mean by saying, that it would have been nice if they kind of pushed just a little bit harder on some of that stuff.
Right, because it does feel, they want to lean towards that, but then they think, oh well,
Lighten it up
this
again.
might right, maybe this won't appeal to people,
Mm.
kind of thing, or maybe it is, they don't want to be in that dark place when playing a game. I understand that. Sometimes you just want to be happy when you play games, but it feels like there could have been a really good message to evoke from this, and they just kind of they don't really go into it.
It's there, but it's not fleshed out as strongly as it could be.
Right.
But yeah, it's an issue, but for me, it's something I can kind of overlook a little bit. We certainly get that in a lot of other games, so maybe they were a little scared about doing it too strongly. I mean, that could have been their mentality. I believe one of the directors is a guy who did some work on the Skies of Arcadia game, though, which is also a very, very light-toned game. Like there are some issues that occur in the game, but they're sort of solved relatively easily. So maybe
I think that's the
sort
issue,
of his.
When the problems are solved really, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think that's what it is right there, is that when problems big like that get solved kind of quickly or easily, it kind of rubs me the wrong way, because sometimes problems shouldn't just kind of, oh, we're done.
Go away.
Oh, we got it. Right. So.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the director's choice or the writer's choice, and we got to live with it. So.
Right, and I understand you can't make a 100-hour game going into the depths of that sort of thing. I understand that, but to just kind of be like, oh, yep, here's the problem, and we're good. And you're just like,
Now, as you did mention, this is the first title in the series. So, I mean, there would be definitely opportunities to flesh out other things with that if you really wanted to.
Right.
This is the package we're dealt with, and again, I'm mostly okay with it. I could see where you're coming from, though. Right.
Well, it's not to say it's terrible or anything, but it's just kind of like it leaves you wanting to get more into it, and you're just like,
Taylor wants the edge. He needs a little edge.
I want the edge. I just don't want serious problems to just kind of be, oh, we're all family here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, there is the instance with the Darksons. It's about mid-game, I guess, by that point, right? Where, well, I don't know. Should we really get into this? Should we move on?
A little bit. Let's get into it.
Okay. So, anyways, you meet this guy Zaka, and he's is he sort of the leader of the Darksons in this camp? I guess, sort of.
It kind of feels like that.
They're not really leader's not necessarily
the
a good
emotional
word.
Leader.
Yeah, because it's not really a good word because they're not really fighting. They're enslaved. They're enslaved in this camp, right. And well, we're not really touching on the characters here, so bringing up the names might be confusing. But anyways, the main character Welkin and his team they end up sort of getting there and able to help liberate this place, but it doesn't really go well in the end. Like there's still some massive casualties that happen, and it's a serious issue that they address, but again, as you said, maybe not to the point of some characters take it hard, but it seems like the majority of the characters are like, we're just going to keep pressing on, keep fighting, not necessarily ignore it, but they don't really give it the full acknowledgement that maybe should have been given for the severity of that issue.
They just don't care for him. They're all a bunch of like secret closeted racists.
Well, there's some characters in there that sort of allude to that, right? They're very touchy about that issue. They're like, I don't really want to deal with anybody with dark hair. I don't want to work with them. I don't want to be around them. And generally, that evolves in the game and stuff. But anyways, did you have more to say about that?
No. I think that's good. I think that's a good point to bring up is something that happens that it kind of just doesn't get explored and just there's a threat. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, that's one thing as well that this game does. There's constant threats, right? Like
right.
I get it that we're in a war game and you want to progress the game so that players are being involved. You don't want to just constantly be giving story. They did a pretty good balance, I think, though, giving you some pretty good story chunks. And as you said, with the book telling theme that they went with, which I really liked. I thought it was neat. And but then sometimes the balance gets broken because either you're watching a few too many clips and then you get a battle, and then sometimes you just get stuck on a battle Like you're just having a lot of trouble with the battle, and you're kind of like, I can't watch another piece of the story, kind of thing, and so forth.
Well,
so.
I was going to say, like, that, I personally liked how they presented it in the book, where you select a little clip to watch, and it's not like, it's not really long, usually.
Not usually.
They're kind of broken up into smaller clips. So you select one of the screens and you watch the little video and you're like, okay. And then if you wanted to, you could either continue with it or kind of check some other things out through the tabs in the book that you get more and more as you progress through the game. Personally, I like that setup because if I have something come up, I can be like, okay, I'm not missing any more video and stuff. Right. Because I'm doing other things or something, I can just kind of be like, okay.
Oh, you can rewatch it right away, which I like too. A lot of games you can't do that, so.
Right.
You lose your place because you haven't played the game in a couple months or something, and you're like, oh, you can get caught up pretty fast. So.
Exactly.
Which is hard to do because a lot of strategy games, I know when I'm playing them, if I put them down for a while, I'm like, it's no problem. I don't really have to care about the story. Just get to the next battle kind of thing. And this game's a bit like that, but as you said, it's broken up into nice little chunks, so you can just be like, okay, I'm just going to watch this chapter again because I don't have to go back to every chapter and follow every single detail. I can just be like, okay, in this chapter, said army is attacking because this general is looking for a particular soldier. That's the chapter, and you're good. So I like that too.
Yeah. I do's twos.
Well, you mentioned the tabs. Why don't we sort of delve into that a bit too?
Okay.
Take it away.
Go on. You take it away.
Okay. Well, you mentioned it. I thought you might.
You're bringing it up to want to. There's tabs. I mean, I don't know what they define those in English though. I played it in Japanese, so I don't know the exact phrase.
Let's get that out of the way. I didn't know you'd played it all in Japanese. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, they're like tabs that you can open on the book pages. I think it's the triangle button. And you can pull up these different things that you want to check out. You can check out character details. You can check out your headquarter area, which is another whole subsection of itself. You can check what the medals decorations that you'll get a little later on in the game. What else am I missing?
The skirmishes.
The skirmishes, which are battles that you can... They're sort of repeat battles that you've played earlier in the game. But
that allows you to
get some more extra experience and funds and stuff. Anything else? There's a few more that are just totally out of my mind.
There's that. There's the character details. You can read through them. Wasn't
there a back history tab of some kind or something?
I thought that was with the character one.
Maybe. I thought more of just an overview of like the history of what happened prior to.
I was say because I played it this time through, I didn't really
ignored it.
I'll admit I kind of ignored it this time through. Just because while it can be kind of interesting, I don't want to be sitting there reading a whole bunch to get more backstory for a game. I kind of find that's a little lazy, to be honest. It feels a little lazy to here's a whole. It's not necessary. Like a case in point, Final Fantasy 13 had a whole bunch of before stuff that if you read would make more sense when you get into the damn game. Right. And while you don't need to read some of this stuff for Valkyria Chronicles. It adds to it because you're reading it and right. You're adding more knowledge of what's going on there. But it's also, it feels kind of like, I understand it's there for other people, but for me, it's not really something I'm kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I want to be doing with my time.
Well, it's certainly not detrimental if you didn't check it out. I
did the first time, but I was just especially this time, I was just I'm not really.
I think most people the second time through would not really go through that. I didn't really personally have the time to do it. I wanted to finish in a reasonable fashion so we could record this. So, but I think you don't necessarily need. I know a lot of games do it. It's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing to add that sort of prior to. Almost prequel knowledge of what is happening.
The encyclopedia of knowledge kind of thing. I don't mind when games do it because the people that really get into the game love that kind of thing. That's cool. That's just not something I'm at least for majority games, I'm not as inclined to inspect as some people would.
Well,
That's just
I will tell you one game that does it incredibly well, and not to just derail too much, but Lost Odyssey does a very interesting way of doing that. And and that's got a lot of reading, actually, a lot.
yes, it does.
But that's one I know you did like. So
well, but
and I
that's
enjoyed
also
that too.
There's a professional writer writing that stuff, so
That's true. That's true. That can make a difference. But I just think the presentation of it was different enough that you're kind of like, whoa, I want to find more of these. But anyways, that's a different game. So.
Right. Different game, right? But no,
cool,
that's a good point.
Concept in that game. Okay, well, why don't we? Now, I would like to do the 10 Degrees of Taylor.
Uh-oh.
But I don't know how we should do this. If we should start looking at characters first, because I wanted to do it more so with the style of troops that you have.
It'd probably be better with the style of troops, because they're like that's the thing about this game is that you get a whole slew of characters, and outside of just the main 10, you don't you might kind of grow attached to some of them. But there's only like a core amount of characters that like has the story progressing around them, and everybody else is just kind of there for the ride.
Right. I didn't mean it so much as that as which direction would you like to go. I was 100% going to do the types of troops that you get.
Okay.
I was just curious. Did you want to talk about characters first, or do that first?
Oh, I see.
My mistake.
We could. No, that's fine. Yeah, we could talk about some of the characters. Like I was saying, there's some of them that because you get. I don't remember how many. There's a lot of them that you can choose from, but you
a
can
fair
only
amount.
Get 20 in your group.
Something like that. At least it's not like super unmanageable. There is a lot of troops. Don't get me wrong, but as you said, you can just kind of be like, well, I have X amount of people already in my team. I don't really need to add more of this kind of person on my team. So, they have some story. To me, it's kind of like how Fire Emblem does it, right? There's plenty of guys where I'm just like, I don't give a shit about said
right.
Axeman or whatever. Like I don't care about this berserker dude or whatever. Every game that's like this is going to have that. I mean,
but they give it to you right at the beginning, so you're kind of inundated with all these characters. Like,
most of them. You do get a handful as you progress on.
Right.
You get a few more, but yeah, I mean, you're kind of going on the aesthetic. Like, oh, I like this dude's haircut, or she's got I don't know, green hair. I'm going to choose her. And you're kind of just doing that at the beginning. So then you really hate some voice actors. You're just, oh God, get out of my team. Get out.
That or what's that? You get those two from what's that one game you mentioned earlier?
Skies of Arcadia.
There you go. Because there's two that are
secret,
fashioned after
not really
them.
secret, but you get a little nice appearance for the fans, I guess. That's how you do fan service without making it all perverted and weird. You just put nice characters into a nice game, another nice game. So, so anyways, you do get a huge list of characters. I'm presuming there are some that you like, but there are the core that you said that you pretty much have to have in battle, because if you don't, you kind of lose I don't want to say turn, because it's not a turn, but you lose these, I don't know what we call those exactly.
It's like a point, because I guess we should have kind of defined that. Is that during your turn you get a set amount of points to move your units, and 1 point will allow you to control a unit and to move them and stuff, and then 2 points will allow you to control your tank and move it around.
Yeah.
And then if you select that unit again, they'll have less movement, but they're able to attack again and whatnot. And then once you run out of points, or when you want to, because you can save those points and add them to the next turn,
right.
You can, stop and then kind of let the enemy unit have theirs, which they kind of never seem to use theirs.
And they spam the hell out of them where they have like 3,000 points or something, and you're just like,
right.
And then you're sitting there on turn 5 or 6, and you're like, oh, come on. And they're not, as you said, they're not doing anything. They're just running back and forth or something. You're just like,
right.
Or they're doing that on purpose because, we'll get into the battle system a little bit, just a touch more later, but they're saving it for orders and stuff. So. Well, let's talk about just a couple of the main characters. So you obviously have Welkin, who is the main character.
Gunther.
He's your main tank boy. You've got Largo, who is your main
Lancer.
And then you have Rosie, who is your main shock trooper. And then you have Alicia, who is your main scout. And oddly enough, there are 2 other classes, but for some reason, they don't have any main characters for some reason. I don't know why.
Because they're lame. No, they're
That's
not
not
lying.
true. You know that's not true.
Right,
So.
right, I know. But I'm just saying, they just
But
not,
just
they
they
just not.
don't for whatever reason. But so just of those main characters, what is your sort of just thoughts on them?
I don't mind Welkin. Welkin's all right. He's kind of, he's just for wanting to be like a biologist or whatever, or,
Right.
kind of studying, kind of give him this quirk that he likes bugs and stuff, and kind of studies and draws these sketches of bugs and stuff. That to kind of go from that to being the like a tank commander in this and like and leading this militia is kind of. It's like, oh, your dad did it, you'll be fine. Like, maybe if you're, Hannibal or something, but as a character, he's all right. He doesn't. I'm not too impressed with him. I guess I don't know. There's just okay. Alicia's kind of the same. They're, she's a scout in the militia. That's just kind of. I don't know. I don't mind some of the characters, but in the same hand, they don't. This is kind of gets back to my issue that they don't really explore. Like Rosie, she's kind of interesting because there's actually dichotomy that kind of is a little abrasive.
Yeah.
And that goes away partway through the game.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of lets her stand out a little bit more. And Largo, he's almost just kind of like fuck you guys. I'm just gonna.
I like Largo.
Calm down. All right, just calm down.
Well, he was in the other war. He mentions a handful of times that he was involved in the previous war as maybe like a 16 or 17-year-old or something. He was quite young.
So he has a little bit more kind of history with it. So he seems very tired, and he's just like, come on, guys, just.
But he's pretty gung-ho, too, right? He's sort of like, we gotta defend ourselves. And
well, I mean, he's tired of, like, infighting and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
just get over that kind of shit, especially with you, Rosie. All right, he's showing us that he can do some things. Let's just follow him and pray to God we don't get killed.
The guy's got a big heart, though, too, right? He looks like this big, gruff guy or whatever, but he's definitely a very flexible piece of the core of the characters, and he's usually one of the first to have a voice of reason. Like at first he's sort of like, I don't know about this Welkin guy. He's kind of like, what is this guy doing? He don't know nothing about war. But he kind of is one of the first to turn quickly onto his side.
Because he recognizes talent.
Yeah, he's got to get back to the talent. But yeah, I like them for the most part. I do see what you mean. I like Welkin. I like that he doesn't play so much the stock main guy, kind of just dopey and like, okay, I've got this mystical power. Like he's not chosen by birth or something. He is chosen by something that he's not really necessarily wants to be chosen for. And he shows development, especially early on, that he's just kind of like, yeah, I'm driving this tank kind of thing. But then he starts to show a progression of like, okay, I've got to be a leader here because nobody else can really do it. Rosie can't do it because she's just too aggressive and forceful. She's not level-headed enough. And then Largo's a little too laid back, and Alicia's a little bit more like Rosie as well. She's a little too like, oh yeah, I got to get in there. And so he's got this good range to me of like, okay, I know when I got to be a little bit up front and push forward, but I know when to lay back too. But I like Alicia. I really liked Alicia a lot. I know you were kind of like meh, but I find she's a little bit played a little strangely in the game, but I don't see a much of a progression of her over the game. But to me, that doesn't matter. I kind of just something I felt relatable about her that I really enjoyed. I liked at the beginning, she's talking about. She seems like she's so tough, but she's obviously not. Like she's very wary of this war, and she just wants to go back to baking her bread and just have a normal life again. And right. she's an aspiring baker, and she's not too happy about this war. And Rosie's just kind of like
train killer,
bust skulls, baby. And she's in there.
Rosie's awesome.
I don't particularly like Rosie. Like at the beginning, I'm just kind of like, and I think that's the point. You're supposed to kind of be like, she's just kind of too arrogant and stuff. And you see her sort of show these softer sides that you start to really come around to her, and she's awesome in battle. She's actually a really good character in the game to use. So yeah, that's just of the main characters. Are there any standouts from like the side characters?
Well, you
just that
forgot Welkin's sister,
I did forget Isara.
Isada. Yeah.
Is. Do they use her
Uh-huh.
nickname Is in the Japanese version, or is it always Isara?
I don't. They might have used it. I don't.
Because
That,
Welkin always refers to her pretty much as Is in the
I
English
don't.
version. Don't remember?
I just remember Isada. I don't remember. They might have used it once or twice, but I don't remember.
It seemed to be used quite often.
Yeah, it could be. They could have been saying something different, and then they in the English one translated or like switched it to that. But
Maybe.
like I don't know. I don't remember that being said.
Okay.
But because yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't register in my head. It could have, but I don't remember that. But she's in there, and she's all right. She butts heads with Rosie.
Yeah, pretty hard actually. They don't like each other. Well, Rosie doesn't like her more than she dislikes her. I guess she's Isara is much more tolerant, and she really wants to find not only her place in the world, but find stability in her life, in her country, and amongst the quote unquote people she's from, I guess. So yeah, I like her. She's fine, and she has a really interesting dynamic with Welkin though. Like she's almost like they're not actually birth siblings, but they grew up together. So there's almost like a little bit of tension, like relationship tension on the side of like she sort of likes him a little bit. It's brought up just very minusculely throughout the game, but she's obviously cares about him a lot as family. But there's kind of times where it's almost like she's growing into womanhood now, and she's sort of like, oh, I kind of find him attractive too. And again, it's not brought up a lot, but even Largo's got a couple of weird moments with East where you're kind of like, what's going on here? Where he's kind of embarrassed when he talks to her or something, shows him blushing and stuff. That's what I mean. Like Largo's just this big happy dude most of the time, and so easily embarrassed by silly things and stuff. So. But yeah, I don't know if there's really any other standouts. We did mention Zaka, but he doesn't really. He comes in a little too late in the game, where you're kind of like, okay, he's just kind of almost a side character. He doesn't quite get a lot of prominence in the game, but I really enjoy it.
He's filling a void. There's a void that comes about in the game.
Well, yeah,
and he kind of like is filling that void in a way.
Much like other characters do that as well, sort of for me, though.
Right.
And they're not playable, but they do sort of fill in that. We could spoil it, but whatever. But yeah, like I found the other characters are fine. They get their little bit of information, sort of again, like I said about like Fire Emblem, which is fine. It's at least they're given something, right? They're not just kind of like, and he walked off into the sunset after the battle or something. They do mention a little bit. Some people do have literally like one sentence. Oh, and they just continue to train today or something, but. Generally, they have a little paragraph of they do this or that and whatnot. I really enjoyed Vice and Aika were given a chance to be put in this game. We're probably not going to see another Skies, which kind of makes me happy. I don't think Skies needs to continue. But it's kind of cool that they keep going. Oh, I like Skies enough that I can be happy with what it is. I don't need more Skies of Arcadia. If they made one, that's great. But if they don't, I'm really happy with the one game. So, But yeah, it was cool to have them in there, and some of the other characters are interesting enough, but they're almost side characters. So.
And I'd say most of the antagonists are kind of
they're pretty plain. I mean,
yeah, they're really.
You get one guy. I found Jaeger was
Jaeger.
He wasn't fleshed out enough though, but he has a lot of interesting things about him, the way he speaks, the way he acts. But he's only given one battle in the game. A tough battle. Jeez, the first time I did that battle, I got smoked, and then I had some trouble with that battle. It's a cool battle though. It's an interesting one. But Jaeger's an interesting one that doesn't get a chance to really do much. And then a lot of the other captains and stuff, they're just like, oh, they're just antagonists to deal with.
Right.
Even Maximilian, yeah, he's they never explain much about him. Like he starts talking in this. I mean, what in the second person?
Because
he starts saying, "You don't understand us," and you're like, "No one's around you, guy." Like, but it's never explained like why he's suddenly possessed or something. It doesn't really. tell you what's going on, and he just starts talking and it's almost just assumed that he's got some sort of, I don't know what exactly.
Lead poisoning. He was drinking out of lead pipes.
Drinking all the Ragnite. But,
Ragnite poisoning.
Ragnite bombs at noon or something. So he's just kind of and then I guess the showcase villains is Silvaria. She's on the cover, and she's promoted quite a bit actually for this game. I've noticed there's lots of statues of her. She seems to be, I guess, a fairly popular character. But even she hasn't come around that much in the game, honestly. Like, for somebody that they seem to promote a lot, it seems like she's front and center for Valkyria Chronicles. And then you kind of got, and over here's Alicia and Welkin in the back waving on top of the...
We're here, guys. Play with us.
On the Edelweiss, they're just kind of like, hey. So, which is kind of weird to me, because Silvaria, she has a lot of interesting things about her that again, are not fleshed out too much. We don't get a lot of like, where does she actually come from? What, how did she really get to this point? Like, you're just sort of like, and he found me in the desert, and I owe him my life, or I don't know if it was the desert. It's probably wrong, but she's just sort of like, I owe my life to Maximilian, and then it's just like, that's it. Yeah, you do, and now go kill yourself for me, kind of thing. Right. And you're kind of like, well, why is she so in love with this dude that clearly doesn't give a crap about her? Like,
very abusive relationship.
Right, and she's this flower that's grown out of the battlefield, but has just been slowly being plucked of petals, right? She's just lost all emotions. Was she just a regular person before? Like, we don't really get that out of her, which would be interesting. They could potentially explore this in another game, I guess. But, yeah, it's kind of too bad that she's given all this spotlight, but it's just like a dead spotlight. There's not much to her, except pissing you off when you have to fight her. She's incredibly frustrating a lot of the time. Right. But, yeah, she's a cool character that's just unfortunately not given much to work with.
Yeah, I thought for the most part the antagonists, including her, they were just kind of like, yeah, and I do agree. Jaeger was kind of cool a little bit. There's a I can't remember the one. Oh, he's got the really thin face, and he lets Welkin go.
He's never explored after that.
Right. He's just
which is random. He just pops up and he's like, I appreciate that you have, some humanity to you during the war, and because you take care of this soldier that's dying, and Alicia and him have this kind of tender but sad moment with this soldier from the opposing forces, and then he's so respectful of and so kind of proud of Welkin almost. Like, he even doesn't even know him, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's just kind of like, we may meet again on the battlefield. Well, you may not, because you don't come back in the game. It's almost as if it got cut out, or I know there was some downloadable content for this game, and I don't know if that's explored in that. Perhaps someone can tell us, but random. Like, it's sort of sad that that's not explored more.
Well, I was going to say, wasn't he on the train though, or something?
See, am I thinking of the wrong guy then?
Unless I'm like mixing up a couple different ones. Are we mixing up?
Because the guy with the glasses is the guy on the train with the blonde hair, the sort of prude captain or whatever he is. I thought those were two different guys.
They might have been. I could be mixing that up.
You could be right, and I could be just completely mixing that up. We're just going to sound like idiots now for one of us. I'm going
to blame Mr. Sushi P, because I was waiting on him to beat this game, just for the record. So I could have swore yep, I'm throwing you under the bus on this one.
Well, if you're wrong, next time we're in Japan, you owe me a free round of Skia, okay?
Okay. All right.
Anyways, let's move on. Let's do a quick 10 Degrees of Taylor. And that is featuring that should be the theme song. The different classes in the game, which is a nice number. It's not too many, which I like that it wasn't sort of like a Final Fantasy Tactics and you've got the builder and you've got all these.
The mathematician!
Way too many. This game does a good job of just simplifying them here. And so we've got the Lancers, the Shock Troopers. We have mentioned these, I guess, a little bit before. The Scouts, the Engineers, and the Snipers. Okay. And I guess the tanks, but they're kind of a little bit off. So So of the little class system there, first of all, give a ranking to each one, and maybe if you can think of a character particularly that you enjoyed using from that class, go ahead and bring them up.
Oh, yeah, I wish I could remember their names for the two, because really for the Scout, Shock Trooper, and Lancers, I used Alicia. I guess I did use the Vice and Ica, the two from
Vice is pretty good actually. He's
Skies, and he's a shock trooper. And Ica's a scout. I did use those two as well, but usually those three classes there, I had Alicia, Rosie, and Largo for those. And the sniper, I can't remember her name. It was just kind of one of those. She had like short hair, and she had a skill word that if sometimes she would get an extra shot.
Okay, I didn't use her. I used Oscar.
Oh, okay.
Oscar was the one guy that I used. He had what was his bonuses? I think he had a night vision, so he was good for some of the night battles. And I don't remember what is that. I didn't use him a lot, but when I used him, he was fairly effective. So.
Okay, and then like the engineers, I actually kind of bounced from. I think I used 2 or 3 different engineers.
Okay.
I wasn't particularly happy with any of them. So
one of the girls was really good, and I used the entire game. I used that Herbert guy, and he was generally good because he had this the double repair option that sometimes would come through. But he also had this one where he had like lazy or something. He would do nothing. He would literally waste your point. He would do nothing. You could just move him, and that was it. And I was like, oh, come on. So I changed him like on one of the second last or the last battle to. I cannot remember which the girl's name is now because I hadn't used her.
Was it the black-haired one or the
maybe
like like a brown-haired one?
I forget. So
kind of like pigtail thing on there.
Maybe I used Herbert so much that I just specifically remember him. So that's one thing about this game too is there's a nice mix of the male and female gender in the game. There's not sort of like all the men are all the lancers. There's tons of female lancers and stuff too. I thought they did a good job. Age thing was a little bit weird. There weren't too many older characters. There's a couple. There was like one guy that was like 60 or something, but they were kind of in the range of. You had ones that were like 12 years old, 12 to all like late 20s maybe. That's about it. So
yeah, which is another issue. But
anyways,
Scout,
it's not that big an issue.
I personally like the Scout, other than their propensity to want to die.
Well, they're pretty weak.
They don't take a hit very well.
No.
But I do like the Scouts a lot just because I like having that movement because they
good accuracy too, shooting.
Right. Especially when you get some of the specialty weapons and stuff. So the Scout I would probably give I'm gonna give it an 8. Just because I know that they can really lose it really badly, especially when they get caught by a shock trooper. They're done for. Pretty much. But I do like the Scouts a lot just because I like that movement, and it allows me to kind of just the play style to actually use them like a scout and kind of move forward and then be like, oh, shit's bad, and then run away.
Get out of there.
if need be. Right.
Yeah.
How much stuff? They
do well teaming up because you can sort of have characters team up. Like if they're standing next to each other, they'll fight together, kind of thing. Right? If somebody's coming close, and you've got 3 shock troopers, they just mow down whoever gets nearby. And they're really good with it if you can team them up with a shock trooper because they have the range. So if as the enemy's coming towards you, they'll start firing first, their first 5 rounds, and usually that character keeps coming, and then the shock trooper finishes them off. So they're usually really good with somebody. I really like the Scouts. At first, they're kind of your lifeblood. You really need them at the beginning of the game. I really like them. I'll give it an 8.5. I really found, especially Alicia, and I used Ica quite often, but Alicia was always in the party just due to the point thing as well. And I found her really effective. So 8.5.
Okay. The shock troopers.
The
only thing that I have an issue with is that their movement is really constricted.
Yeah.
They don't move very far, and they don't shoot quite as well at a range. And they have their kind of reticle is a lot wider.
Right.
But they do get, like, when you you can get like this flamethrower ability thing, which is pretty nice.
Right.
Um,
And that comes later in the game, so it actually helps mix it up a little bit too.
right, but at the same hand, it's later in the game to the point where you're like, you got to spend some skirmishes to get used to this sort of thing to kind of.
Nope, I was just in there, and anyone hiding in the grass.
Well, yeah, you do. I guess in a way, if you're just kind of like, if you already have something that you're comfortable with, you're not as likely to be really using it.
I kind of disagree with that because as the game progresses on, the enemies like to start dodging, and if you're using just the machine guns, they often just literally like lay on the ground and you can't hit them, which is another kind of issue with the game. But they can't dodge the flamethrower. You just and and the flamethrower can hit 3-4 guys in front of you. You can take them all out. Usually flamethrower is just one shot and they go down.
Well, but to get to that, usually at that point you're kind of fighting a whole bunch of other.
It really
stuff.
depends on the stage, right? Like if you're in the city area, you can kind of sneak around a corner quickly, change into the shot mode and mow guys down. So it really depends. Open field, you're probably going to be sticking with that machine gun.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, there's just some of those. Well, yeah, it can be really good, but there's times where if you try to do that, it might not be the best thing. But shock troopers can take a hit, so that's
take quite a few.
yeah, they don't mind getting shot up like a piñata, and they just keep on gunning.
Yeah.
I probably just because of the range thing, I'd probably say like a 7.5, just because that range really gets to me. Because if it was just a little bit more, it'd be great. But nope.
There are a few guns that do have a little bit better range, but generally, you're kind of looking at whatever distance they have on them, and it often is difficult to get the shock troopers inside because they have to charge in. And if you're charging a little fortified area, they're probably going to get mowed down. It's really hard for them to get in by themselves. So, but they're a good cleanup crew too. And my problem is I think they're far too advantaged for the computer, for the enemy, because the enemy just basically sits back in their base and waits for you to come at them. And you can't get shock troopers in there. And they just wait, and they sit behind these sandbags where they take less damage, and you've got to rush in. And we missed that the scouts actually have, later on, they get this little grenade shot thing that they can shoot into bases and stuff that's really effective. But so the shock troopers go down a little bit more for me. But Rosie's a beast. Like once you can get people into the open field or something, she's just clobbering people. She's really strong. She can take quite a few shots. So yeah, I'm gonna go 7. They're really useful at the beginning. You're like, man, I'm never gonna not use shock troopers. And then you get later in the game, you're like, I can't use shock troopers because they can't do anything.
Right. The Lancers.
They suck so bad at the beginning of the game. You're just like, why do we even have these idiots in the game? They're so bad.
Right. But in the same hand, I don't know how I want to feel about them because the tanks in the game have the Ragnite exposed. And if you can hit the Ragnite that's exposed, it's done. It's over. With the anti-tank Lancers. But in the same hand, you've got to get up close because those stupid fucking the inaccuracy of the Lancer really irks the hell out of me.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Because it's just like you could be 20 feet away from something, and you shoot that, and it'll veer like
to the right or something.
30 degrees off to the right. You're just like, come on, really? Yeah. And it's the same issue I have with the tank too. Is that like you could be. Until you upgrade it and stuff, it's just so inaccurate. And
even after that, though, it's still... But you have a huge advantage in that the tank can't be harmed by minuscule fire.
Right.
So that you often can put the tank in some harm's way. But the shock troopers can take... the Lancers can take quite a bit of damage. But they can't defend themselves at all. That's the problem. No. Not at all. So
they're like, oh, you're going to shoot me? That's cool, bro.
Right. And near the end of the game, I noticed, though, that they set up certain areas of the game. encouraging you to use the Lancers now, where they're like, well, we know that if you come around this particular corner, we're moving this tank 2 turns before. If you're intelligent enough to follow what we're doing, you can just blast this tank into smithereens.
Right.
So they start to do that later on, which is a little unfortunate that you don't learn early on that you really need to use the Lancers a lot more, because you're just going to use tank-on-tank battles pretty much for probably the first 10 battles, pretty much. You'll have Largo in there because you're like, well, I need the extra point, and you might start to experiment with him a little bit, but after that 10th battle, you start to like, whoa, I got to start sneaking some of these guys in here because tanks can't fit everywhere.
Yeah.
No more complaining. Scores, Taylor. Score.
6.
Oh. Even with the big, lovable, huggable Largo?
Yes. I mean, I like the character, but I mean, I don't like the class.
He's one of the more accurate ones out of the group.
Thank God.
Generally. But yeah, geez, if he was really bad, then you'd be like, oh, wow. Gotta waste his space for Largo. But he's not too bad. He can have a little bit of distance, and you can get some good shots out of him. I'm going to give them... See, I found them really good near the end of the game. So I'm going to be a little generous. I'm going to give them a 7.5, just because they become very effective in that last half of the game. But you have to really push yourself to use them and learn how to use them. It's really too bad that they don't show you early on how effective they can be. But
I mean,
the Jaeger battle. The Jaeger battle, you have to use them. Your tank's going to get smashed if you try to get in there tank on tank with Jaeger. He's just going to eat you alive. You get one of those little Lancers just in front of him and just bang, bang. You're just smoking them. So, anyways, Lancers. What do you got next? Engineers? Snipers? Okay.
Or the engineers, either one. I was going to say the sniper. Sniper, I like them.
You complained about the shock troopers movement.
I was about to say, yeah, they're so like lead-footed. They
take like 3 steps. Tired, boss.
Whatever. Fuck it, I don't care.
Now this is where it comes in. Where taking camps though makes a huge difference, and sending troops back into retreat and pulling out a sniper can make a difference, because you pretty much can't take a sniper at the beginning of the battle. There's very few battles where they're useful at the start.
Right.
There's only a couple that I can think of, and near the end of the game.
No, there's one that's early on.
There is one early on, but you got to be careful with that one, because you're also facing like 10 other snipers.
Right.
You've got like one or two.
Yeah, so you got to be good with that. But I like them because, especially when you get one of their better weapons, they'd be really accurate.
You've got long range on a couple of them too.
Right, but yeah, I mean, you kind of get into that issue where some of them have that stupid dodge. God damn it, do I hate that dodge.
Usually for snipers, though, do they dodge the sniper shots?
I've had that happen before a couple
times.
times.
Not often, though.
It happens a couple times.
Yeah.
Because they're dicks. But
it's really annoying.
It's so dumb. You just
hey guys, there's a bullet coming.
lay down, okay.
800 meters away.
Yeah, but I love it's so satisfying to snipe some dude in the face.
It's pretty satisfying.
It's just like boom,
especially
you're dead.
If it's like some shock trooper that's planted some spot where you had to go to all this trouble to get that scout in there to blow up those sandbags. Man, who came up with the idea that sandbags could block pretty much freaking everything? Like, God,
right?
Oh, that's frustrating. And the enemy always has their sandbags. You always hide my sandbags and everything's sandbags. And you gotta risk getting a scout in there. But luckily you get that little looping grenade thing later on. But still, right. you do have to put somebody in harm's way so the sniper can be like, hey, and then, because if you shoot somebody who's clearly got their head outside of a sandbag, and then it's like you did a quarter damage because you hit the guy in the face, and you're just like,
because he's got sandbag protection.
Come on.
Yes. Right.
I could understand if you hit them in the chest or something, but when you hit them in the head, they got to go down.
That's the game thing. So
yeah, it's just the game. But anyways,
but I like them. I would probably give them an even 7.
I'm gonna give them a 6.5 because they're pretty much ineffective for about 80% of the game, for me at least.
See, I like using them for 80% of the game.
I like them. I like them. They can be really fun to use and really good. There's one of the battles where Savaria shows up. You get this perch like right at the start of the stage, and very useful. But just the lead-footedness makes them hard to use. Taking those camps, I'm too busy. Just like once I get a camp, I got to keep pushing forward. I can't be affording to wait for him to come to the next turn and putting somebody out for this turn. So if he's not there, he or she's not there at the start, I kind of can't be bothered. So.
All right, and the last one, the engineers. Like I was saying earlier, I juggled a few of them because I thought that they weren't really amazing.
They can't fight. I mean, they can't fight.
They're not. Yeah, I was going to say they're not good for fighting. They're there to like repair things or to repair your tank kind of thing, to heal your tank. Yeah, and for that they're great.
Landmines.
They're great. Just basically sit that asshole right there behind the tank. And just repair. That's really all.
Fix it.
They're there for. Yep.
Yeah.
So like for that reason alone, I would give them an 8 because then you can just tank abuse at certain points. Right. You can tank abuse and be like, all right, yeah. Oh, you did a little bit of damage. Engineer, take care of that. So.
There's a point later on in the game where there's that huge landmine field, and you can just have them just take it off.
Right, yeah, just like I'll just take care of that. I'll take care of that.
Yeah, they're good. They're a good character. I heard later on in some of the other games, they might be a little more effective for fighting. But I also heard they lost some function of some kind. I don't know what they lost, but they can also repair sandbags and also the barricades and stuff.
Right.
Which I used a couple of times. I mean, it's not really important, but it can be helpful at points. So I like them too. I'll probably give them a 7.5.
Okay.
But they can't take a shot. I mean, one sniper shot anywhere, they're pretty much dead. They can maybe withstand one scout's turn of shots, maybe. Yeah, anyone else, they're done. Even the Lancers seem to just eat these guys up. Like, Lancers just seem to blow these guys away. And the Lancers miss everything. So.
Right. They have
the smaller the target, the better the shot. I don't know. So, all right. Okay, well, we are starting to push the time here a little bit. So is there anything here? Now, I know we didn't really get into the battle system heavily, but aside from that, if you want to mention that or anything else, we maybe bring it up.
Well, I was going to say I brought up a couple times, but you do actually you get experience and what's the other thing you get? It's like an experience points and then like a battle points or
some sort of funding of some
funding,
some sort of money sort of.
I guess I don't remember what they would.
I don't know what they call it either.
I was going to say because it's not something you pay attention to really. You're just like
how much should I get?
Right, basically. And you use that to use the experience points to learn orders, which we didn't really cover, which orders can allow you either a single unit or all of your units some sort of stat boost.
Mm-hmm.
And you use those to learn orders, or you use them to level up your units, and then once they hit level, was it 11?
12 maybe?
12?
Something like that.
12, it's 13, a goofy
11.
number.
It is a kind of weird number.
It's like, why wouldn't you just do it at 10? I think it's 11. I could have swore it was 11 because you get to 10 and then 12. 11.
I don't know. Anyway,
and then your unit will kind of
elite
learn those,
status.
Right, they get the shock troopers get the flamethrowers, the scouts get the
grenade launcher
kind of thing and stuff. And that's good. That's fine and dandy. But other than that, there's really no purpose of the experience points. And even leveling up between like level 1 and 2, it really doesn't feel like there's anything.
Well, you don't get more movement points and stuff, but you do get more hit points and stuff. You do see a difference in that.
Minimum.
It's not much, but it does make a difference. If you go back and do some skirmishes because you want a few extra points and you do the easy ones, you'll blow away through them because you will notice a difference then. But it's not enough to kind of. It almost doesn't warrant like having the system. It would be nice if it did a little bit more. But I just love going there because I love hearing the guy get ready to work, maggots. So just the one-eyed drill sergeant there.
Right.
I don't know what he sounds like in Japanese.
Yeah,
He says the same thing like every time in English. Like,
yeah, just that.
that beat another round out of the scouts or whatever he said. I like that guy. I wish I could use that guy as a secret character. He had like a little laser beam under his eye patch or something. He could like blow up a tank in one shot. Why not the Valkyria? Maybe he was like a secret Valkyria or something.
But then you also get the kind of like the funding thing, and you use that to upgrade your equipment to get better armor,
Blast off.
to also upgrade your tank and tanks. Yeah, eventually tanks. But and they do that kind of. I don't want to say weirdly, but you do get you upgrade them on your own. But then you also have a plate where you get little pieces for certain upgrades that you put onto the plate, so you can kind of customize your tanks. And that's not too bad. You always kind of wish there was just a little bit more room, so you get
particularly for the second tank. I mean,
right? Yeah, that second tank sucks. The only thing that's good about it is
it's good defensively.
Good for maybe drawing fire. That's about it. It is a metallic meat shield.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot more inaccurate than the Edelweiss, but as you say, it has a function though.
Sorry,
so it's still useful. It's still useful to a point though. I found that it could use those blast little missile things. It could hold more of those, and I found that because that tank's a little faster, like it's a little more maneuverable. So getting in there and like dropping one of those shots in a little area and then getting it out of there was useful. So it has its function. At least I found it did. But generally, it can't take too much damage in these.
Right, that was the big thing, is that like the Edelweiss can at least take hits, where Shamrock would take only a couple.
Maybe three if you're lucky.
Depending
on what you get.
Where it hits. Yeah, and then goes.
But it's not game over if that guy dies, so he doesn't technically die. Right? He's just like, hey guys, he like shows up the next battle. You're just like,
I'll be alright, bro.
Explode. Hey guys.
No problem.
That guy's got a weird gimmick too with the one eye thing, because he's like some sort of tinkerer or something was the explanation. So he always closes one eye.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, that's characters.
But yeah, but yeah, that was just something I wanted to bring up.
But yeah, the battles are fun for the most part, even when they're frustrating. This is one of these games that you had mentioned. I was behind schedule recording this and stuff. So there was times where I was like, I'm really having some difficulty here, and I do want to finish this in a reasonable amount of time. I don't want to be at like 75 hours because I was stuck on some battle forever. And so I checked some stuff online. Some people found some interesting tricks on this game that I was really like.
That reminds me. There was one battle that I had that I remember. I love the battle because it's a night battle. You're chasing down a vehicle, but you can't blow it up because there's somebody important in the vehicle. And I remember the first time I played it, I was kind of frustrated with it, but I liked it. I thought it was because that's the thing about this game, is that there's a lot of battles that are different.
Yeah.
And that really kind of helps keep things lively. And so you're not just, or with like Final Fantasy, with Fire Emblem, you're, normally
storming the castle wall again.
Right. Normally you're in
the castle
taking
or outside of the castle.
Or that doesn't matter. Normally you're taking the throne, or you're defending it, or it's like take out the boss, kind of, or defend it for 10 turns or something. Okay, I understand it's a little harder to be a bit more varied with it, but there's like one chapter in particular where it's just Alicia and Welkin, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's another night one. But then there's this one where you're trying to chase down this vehicle, and you can't blow it up. But you have to right. But you have to like take out the tiring of it, or something.
I actually used shock troopers. I just took out the Ragnite on the back with shock troopers, and it was fine.
Okay. Well,
maybe you can't blow it up, as you said.
Right.
As long as you
can't
kind of
blow it up. You have to.
Down.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to kind of use you have to shoot it down that way. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that when I played through it this time, I actually beat that in 2 turns. No, was it 2 turns? Either like 1 or 2 turns. And how it happened was the enemy is allowed to blow up the vehicle.
Right.
So they blew up their own vehicle, but they were just like, oh yeah, nothing happened, everybody's okay. So what happened was I like took Alicia and I was trying to just not head it off because you get gunned down really easily if you do
Right,
that,
near the
but
tank.
just kind of get but just kind of get in the area to show where these assholes are. And I hid like kind of partially behind some boxes, and that vehicle gets there, and the enemy unit brought out one of their lancers, or they moved their lancer in position and blew up the fucking vehicle, and I just won the chapter. Then I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, all right, I'll take it, and you get a huge fucking bonus for beating it so quickly.
High
Yeah.
rank.
Right. And I was like, yeah, just all in a day's work there, kind of thing. And so I was like, yeah,
that doesn't happen too often, that's for sure.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, usually not too many clumsy things on the computer's part, actually, surprisingly. But yeah, there's definitely some ones that I saw and I was like, oh, I'm surprised somebody just was like, I could just do this. And I was like, oh, it's very effective and you can get like an A rank. I mean, I found out the A rank on the very last battle and I was like, because I started playing it and actually you were kind of like, hey, come on, chop, we gotta do this one. And I was like, it wasn't super hard, but I was kind of like, well, I struggled with it the first time. And usually you mentioned to me as well, the first time you play a battle, you pretty much have to lose. You pretty much have to do as many turns as you think you can do to get a good idea of what to do to actually beat it. But it's interesting. Some people have come up with some very clever strategies for this game. And you can also draw out these battles and make them into these big, gritty, difficult challenges for yourself. But
right.
It's a good balance of that.
Something we also didn't really touch upon was that Sakimoto Hitoshi, he did the music for most of it.
Oh, I love the music.
I think the theme song's done by somebody else, but I don't know who that is. It's just some random guy for all I know. Some is like Daisuke something. Daisuke Kawaguchi.
The old pitcher for the Bo Sox? Was it Daisuke Matsuzaka or something?
Yeah, I think it's Matsusaka. But no, I think it's like Kawaguchi Daisuke or something. Mm-hmm. Sakimoto did an amazing job with the soundtrack. It's like the main, like the I don't want to call it the opening theme, but the theme that plays at the menu at the beginning of the game where you can select it. I love that song, and it plays sort of. There's a twist to it during the final battle that makes it really, really badass. It's just so like, yeah. And Sakimoto does a lot of that kind of music. I think he did Tactics as well. That I could be wrong, but that sounds right. And I think he has that flair for doing this thing. He does a good job with the drums, and just it's the music gets you set for these battles, and you're just like, okay, it's time to actually have this kind of warfare thing going. Bang, bang, bang.
I really enjoy the soundtrack, but I generally enjoyed it because of the lack of drums. A lot of these games that have tactical elements to them, there's too much of that militaristic, like to the drum beat, the soldiers are moving. This game has it does, but there's certain tracks that they just kind of completely avoid that.
Right.
I really appreciated that certain battles, they just don't even have that. You don't need constantly to like, doing this to get your heart racing. There were other ways that he was able to experiment and be like, yeah, this is really motivating me to do this battle and stuff. And I thought it was really good. And sadly, last time I was in Japan, I desperately looked for this soundtrack. It seems to be fairly hard to run by. I tried to look online for it and stuff. I'd really love to get a copy of it, but I don't know. It might be difficult to get. This is one that I don't typically kind of go out of my way to try to find soundtracks that often, but this is one I would really like to have a copy of.
Yeah, he did a really excellent job with that.
All right. Well, if you have nothing else, we might want to close up shop.
Wrap it up.
All right. So, thanks again, everyone, for listening to our little bit all over the map here for our Valkyria Chronicles. But final thoughts from you, Taylor? It sounds like you enjoyed the game.
I do. I actually like the game, and while playing through a second time wasn't as fun because there's a I don't want to say plot twist, but there's something that going to say shocking, but very sudden and kind of like shit that happens. And when you know that, it takes a little bit away from it. However, it's fun not to have to be like agonizingly going over these battles again to be like, oh yeah, I remember sort of doing this way kind of thing.
Right.
It's fun. If you've not given it a shot, I would totally say, hey, if you're not a big tactical RPG person, because it's, I would say still give it a shot, because it plays kind of like XCOM is what I've heard. I think it's sort of like that. I think XCOM's kind of like that. So give it a go, as in Valkyria Chronicles, not XCOM. Yeah. We're not talking about that game. So give it a go. Just knowing how it's not retro, but I mean, knowing how RPG sales are for older games, it might be a little bit of a penny for it. But if you can find it for a good deal.
Sorry to cut you off there, but as far as I know, it's still like a $20 game, and
there you go.
Not super common, but you can find it for like $19.99 semi-regularly, from what I understand. It's even though the sales weren't like that strong at first, it seems that this game did well enough over time that people had bought it, but then started trading it in and stuff. It seems to float around relatively common. I don't think it's like an $80, $90 game or anything. Thankfully, this is one that people can experience at a reasonable price. So.
I was going to say, yeah, for $20, I would say definitely give it a go. I mean, it's $20, really. I mean, it's
you could do worse with $20. That's for sure.
You could do worse with $20. You could buy like 100
$20 scratch and win tickets and
then lose it all.
Right. Or win big.
Or win big, and then we're just being assholes.
You can buy hundreds of copies of Valkyria.
right.
Stockpile.
Hoard them. But yeah, no. I would say give it a go if you have not.
Awesome. I really enjoyed the game. I'm so glad that I finally was able to kind of put this one to rest. It's probably one I will play again in the future. They do have a sort of new game plus feature, sort of. But you can play the game again and with your equipment, and of course you can start over. But yeah, it's a really fun game. I really enjoyed the music. I like the concept of it. There's so much to like here, even though there are some issues that would have been nice to have cleaned up. But it's a really nice experience. It's a really good PS3 game. It might not be for everyone, but it's one of these ones that I think is definitely worth checking out, even just for a battle, if you just borrowed it and were just willing to try it. One thing about the story that I guess we didn't bring up that you just sort of mentioned was in the storybook, I do have a slight issue in that they actually show an image of what's to come on the pages, like before you even watch them or get the chance to unlock them. That kind of kills a bit of the story for me, because you can be like, well, I can see an image of somebody doing something in particular, or something is in the image that sort of says, okay, I know what's going to happen next. I would have liked if they had a question mark or blank there.
Oh, and then when you see it,
right? Because there's a few times I was like, oh, geez, really? I already know what's happening. Oh, geez, really? I already expect this character to do this thing or something. So that was a little bit, but that's a minor flaw that again could have been easily remedied, but it is what it is. So
right.
All right. Well, let's close up shop. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Valkyria Chronicles, and we hope you get a chance to experience the game and enjoy it like we both have. So, from Mr. Murugado553 and myself, Sushi B, thanks again, and we'll catch you again next time.